Now let's look at another process called cross-pollination. Cross-pollination is defined as the transfer of pollen grains from the anther of one plant to the stigma of a flower on a different plant of the same species. This process usually requires a pollinating agent such as insects or wind to carry the pollen. Cross-pollination is the transfer of pollen grains from the anther of one plant to the stigma of a flower on a different plant of the same species. This usually happens with the help of agents such as insects or wind that carry the pollen from one plant to another. Fertilization occurs when the male cell from the pollen grain reaches the ovule and fuses with the female egg cell, leading to the formation of seeds. Cross-pollination increases genetic variation because genetic material from two different plants is combined. Some plants also encourage cross-pollination by producing stamens and carpels at different times. However, this process often depends on the presence of pollinators to transfer the pollen between plants. So, the self-pollination and cross-pollination are both important processes in plant reproduction. They help plants produce seeds and ensure the continuation of plant species. Self-pollination occurs when pollen from the anther is transferred to the stigma of the same flower or another flower on the same plant. This may happen when pollen falls directly onto the stigma or when insects move pollen within the same plant. After pollination, the pollen grain grows a pollen tube down the style so the male cell can reach the ovule and fertilize the female egg cell. This leads to the formation of seeds. Self-pollination is important because it allows plants to reproduce even when pollinators are not available, but it usually produces little genetic variation. Whereas, cross-pollination occurs when pollen is transferred from the anther of one plant to the stigma of a flower on a different plant of the same species. This transfer is usually carried out by agents such as insects, birds, or wind. Once the pollen reaches the stigma, it grows a pollen tube down the style, allowing the male cell to fertilize the egg cell in the ovule, which results in seed formation. Cross-pollination is important because it increases genetic variation, helping plants adapt better to environmental changes and improving the chances of survival of the species.